The entrepreneur wheel is a crazy, crazy thing and a crazy scenario that a lot of people stay stuck in after they escape the 9 to 5. They go into entrepreneurship and they start working 24/7. Let's talk about that, Andrew.
I once heard someone say, I quit my 9 to 5 thinking it would be easy. And I started working half days, but now I get to choose which 12 hours a day I work.
That's right. Exactly. How many of you guys can relate to that? As entrepreneurs, you come in and you get excited, you start creating a vision, and then these motions start to get into play. You start getting a little bit of sales, but then all of a sudden the expenses are a little bit too high. Tax season comes around. Oh, this hire starts to turn around. All these different things start to happen, and everything goes downhill, and it goes back up, and it goes downhill. This roller coaster of a wheel happens. And we want to talk about that today. We want to talk about how to get over those humps and talk about the seasons of entrepreneurship. So, good morning, William. Good day, William, who is the first one on here. Hello, hello, hello.
What's up, brother? Good to see you, man. How was your weekend? How was everybody's weekend? Let's get the energy up. Type it in the chat. Get the wheels turning. So, as you was describing that, Leo, I felt like you were describing a little bit of the first 7 years of my entrepreneurial journey.
Tell us about it.
And I got into it thinking like, I'm going to make $1 million in a year. And I'm excited. I'm dreaming big. I have big goals. And while I am experiencing levels of success, I didn't realize it was more about who I was becoming. And I think when you can start looking at business in that way, saying, how do I become the person who can handle business, who can create income, who can create wealth, who can build cash flow, when I can become the person who actually enjoys my life and likes myself, that is much different than just getting good at one high income skill. And so every time I had a success, it was like, I'm almost there. I'm breaking through. This deal's going to get me through. I'm going to finally get my $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $500,000, $1 million year. But every time I was about to break through, or even when the money did come, then it was like, well, but an ad cost happened more than I thought, or this happened, or litigation happened, or there was always I'm almost there, but. And it wasn't until it was, I guess, a few short years ago, we met and started working together. And you changed my perspective to realize it is so much more about becoming than it is the doing. And so on this Mindset and Motivation Monday, I want to dig in a little bit as we go together through the seasons of business. Because I just thought, gosh, I just make some calls, like I can immediately start reaping benefits. But there's seasons in business just like there's seasons in life.
Yeah, and you'll get to a point, you're making some calls, you're making some money, but then you've put yourself in a bigger league that starts getting into the problems of taxes, getting into the problems of hiring, getting into the problems of time management.
Yeah.
Right. And what we start to realize is that your business is going to grow at the same level and nowhere above the level of your personal development. So if you are not someone that can handle making money, bringing money in, your business is not going to grow because you're not going to allow it to grow. You're going to be getting more sales, and then you're going to come to a point emotionally where you say, hey, I can't make any more, right? I don't deserve more, whatever these thoughts come up. And that's going to hold you back as you're bringing in more revenue. So today we're going to talk a lot about the growth aspect of you as an individual and how that's going to grow your business. And we're going to be talking about the 4 seasons of business, how to know which one you're in. And when you're in one of these 4 seasons, what to do? What are the action steps? What is the perspective to get myself through it? And is there a season that I can look forward to? Like a season of rest?
Yeah.
Is there a season that I can look forward to? And then we're also going to talk about a season of isolation. Why that's so important for, I believe, every entrepreneur, especially if you're wanting to build a new tribe, be around new individuals, and for yourself to grow at the highest level, a season of isolation is so important. And it reminds me of COVID, right? COVID was a big season of isolation for a lot of us. And look at how much you grew. Look at how much you expanded as an individual because of the time that you had just by yourself, maybe with family, and you had nothing else to do but to work, to make some money, and to develop yourself as a human.
So I think understanding that, Leo, many people, when opportunities come disguised as problems, many people take the route of, well, gosh, but I got to wait till this changes. So then I can do the deal. Then I can start the business. Then I can finally, once I get this done, then I can do that. And we wait our whole life saying, when I can, then I will. And as entrepreneurs or successful people, people of wealth, say yes now and figure out how. And when we realize that everything we do is leading us to something, leading us to the next level, leading us to the next opportunity, now everything begins to change for us.
Hi, Roberta. How are you doing?
Nice to see you.
Keep it going,
Roberta.
Andrew.
Awesome. So for all of you, I think it's going to be a powerful thing. And by the end of today's episode, I want you to have absolute clarity of where you are in seasons in your life. Nice to see you, Kay. So as you get that clarity, what season you're in, as you get that clarity of where you're headed and what your objective is, like, why am I doing all this? Because sometimes we launch a business and we're asking ourselves, like, I started this to give back more, but then we get so caught up in the weeds that we forget why the heck we even began in the first place. And so if we can really gain clarity by the end of this episode, you know exactly what you need to do, have clarity of exactly what season you're in, and exactly how you can manage that season better. Because there's going to be hard times, but we can either let those become an emotional roller coaster for us, or we can let them destroy us, or we can let them be moments of growth. So the seasons, you want to talk about the seasons a little bit, Leo?
Yeah, let's start with season number 1. Everyone type in the chat, planting. This is the first season. This is the foundation that we go through. It is the creation of a new venture, a new project, or a goal. For a lot of people, it's Q1, right? Q1 comes around. You've done a lot of reflection the season before, and now you have a new goal and project that you want to create. So you start planting these seeds, right? You start investing your time, your energy, your resources into learning, into building systems, and laying the groundwork for the future successes, for the future seasons that come, right? This is the time when people are building their brands. They're posting a lot of new content. They got a new content strategy, new marketing ideas, right? New marketing initiatives. We do the same thing for our businesses, right? Hey, new marketing ideas, you see the gyms do it all the time, right?
Yep.
It's the new year. Team hiring, personal development, a lot of personal development starts to happen. And we'll see that happen in culture, right? New year, new me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will start that, but then they'll stay in that season for so long. Let's talk about the planting season just a little bit longer before we go into the next season.
So growing up in the country, growing up on a farm, I always remember when it would come January, February, getting the end of winter, start to be spring, Mom would start making a list of all the seeds we was going to get. We need tomato plant seeds, and we need the green bean seeds, and we need the corn, and we need the potatoes. And I would remember right as it started to become planting season, Dad would get the old Troy-Bilt tiller out, and I think he's still got it. He's had it for probably 40 years or 35 at least. He would get the old red Troy-Bilt tiller out, and he would start tilling the ground. So the first thing we had to do was break the ground and get it ready for the seeds, because you can't just put seeds in hard dirt. Well, I guess some of the farmers are doing it with the no-till drills now, but back then. So we would till up the gardens. We'd till them up, and then we would put the seeds, put the plants, put the potatoes, put the things in the ground. And of course, as a kid, you're going out the next day hoping that something has grown. But you quickly learn that it's going to be a few weeks before something starts to peep through. So as I'm planting, as I'm building, as we're growing, it is all about preparation, and it's all about understanding. So as we're growing, planting in our business, it sometimes means we're learning. We're going to events. We're going to gather information. We're breaking up our mind, the ground of our mind, to make it ready to be able to receive the next level of information, because in order to get where we want to go, we can't stay where we are. And I know that's deep and profound, but we have to break up what sometimes is that hard dirt of our mind says, no, this is the way it's always been. And we have to allow ourselves to change that belief to allow things to become easier. That's uncomfortable.
I agree. This could be 1 to 3 months. Me and Andrew, so in our businesses, we are always in different seasons, but we'll pay attention to what's our primary season, right? Because we're always doing sales, we're always doing deals, and that might look like we're in another season. Someone might look from the outside and say, wow, you guys are always in a hustle season, right? But no, that's just kind of the way we live. Even sometimes when we're in a rest period, we'll still take a couple calls here and there.
Sure.
Right. But we'll understand and respect the season that we're in. For example, planting season, we'll prioritize the vision. We'll prioritize the marketing plan. We'll prioritize hiring the right people. Right. Here, we're in Q1 here. We're focused on those things. And while we're still making sales calls, while we're still doing other things, we are focused on the learning.
Right.
Now, a lot of people, though, they'll stay in the learning phase, in the planting phase, and then years go by, and they're still in the planting phase. They're still learning and going to courses, reading books, which is great, but they're not going into other seasons. They're planting it, and then they're just leaving it. They're planting it in dirt, leaving it. I don't know how to plant, guys. I have not a green thumb. Every plant I have cultivated has died. That's why I have fake plants now, and it works out. But I'm good at taking care of pets.
But imagine you go to the store. We used to go down to the corner store in Belle Rive, Illinois. And imagine you go down to the store and you buy all the seeds, and you go out and you look at the garden, you till the garden, and you become prepared, but you never actually take time to plant. Or if you do plant, you don't take time to cultivate and let them grow. And I think that is where so many entrepreneurs get stuck. That's in the analysis paralysis phase.
Absolutely. So when I think about this, I just put it here. I have it in front of me. But I think about Chinese philosophy that my mom had taught me, and it's being able to respect the seasons. So as we go through each season, I just want to have the foundation. I want to lay this out for you guys, is that a deep part of this idea is that you respect the season that you're in. And that's why when we're in a season of planting, we'll respect that vision comes first, that hiring comes first, that those things, that's just the season that we're in. And also when we're in seasons of absolute hustle, we just have to respect it. We say, this is how it's supposed to be. The Bible says, find this for me in your Bible mind of there's times for X and there's times for X. There's times for
everything. There's a season. There's a time to plant, basically a time to grow, a time to live, a time to be born, a time to die. All the things we experience, there's a time for.
And guys, if you're listening intently and you're taking this saying, I'm going to use it, utilize that scripture and just say there is a time to go through these hard times right now, because it's teaching me something. I'm in a current season, and I'm going to reap those benefits of the efforts that I'm putting in. And when you say that, or at least in my mind, when I was always going through the hardest times, I didn't know how to handle them. I didn't have the emotional tools to really get myself out of these situations. I would just say, you know what, Leo, there's a time for suffering, and there's a time for healing, and there's a time for resting. Right now, I'm in a time of suffering, and I'm going to suffer. I'm going to allow myself to suffer because I respect that season. I respect that part of my life that I need to go through. And if I think about myself being an 80-year-old Chinese man, I think of, okay, hey, I'm going to look back and say, I'm glad you went through that suffering because it made you into a stronger individual. It made you into a stronger leader. Do you have that scripture in front of you?
I do. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
To everything, there's a season, a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, time to cast away and a time to gather, a time to embrace and a time to refrain, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace.
Wow. So basically, in essence, and correct me if I'm wrong, it just says there's a time for everything. It's respect those seasons, know that you are in a season, but exactly what you're going through is what you're supposed to be going through.
And I think if you watch the news media and you watch the things that we can be fed in today's world and the things some entrepreneurs even believe sometimes, right? Some entrepreneurs step into this mentality of, oh, but real estate's hard, but selling is hard, but people ain't buying now, but this ain't happening. Finding good people is tough. I can't find a good all these negative programs. And the news media is very good at their job, which is to gain attention. And they're sharing these things that don't serve you. And the people who follow them are having emotional highs and emotional lows. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that the president said this or done this. Or I can't believe that Congress, or I can't believe. And so there's all of these emotional ups and downs that are happening. And when you start to look at things in a long-term perspective, you realize that overall, the things that are happening are happening. We of course have information. Go vote. Go let your voice be heard. But ultimately, there's going to be ups and downs. Every day, there's going to be a new cycle and a new story of emotion, the same as there is in our business.
Andrew, what do you say to the people who are like, all right, Andrew, I get it. I'm supposed to be in a suffering phase right now, and I've been trying every day, going after. It's been 2 years. I'm still broke.
Yeah.
What's happening? Should I just respect this season then?
That's not a season. That's a place that we have found ourselves to sometimes remain in, and that's because of 20% is action, 80% is mindset. So let's say I make $10 an hour. When I started real estate, I was making a little bit more than that. I think 13 or 15. Let's say I make $10 an hour because that's easy math. Now, if I say, gosh, I'm broke, I'm working 10 hours a day, I'm making $80, I could work 20 hours a day and only sleep 4. I'm only going to make at $10 an hour, $200 at 20 hours a day. 10 hours a day, $100. So no matter how many hours I work, there's literally only 24 hours in a day.
Correct.
So I could sit there and say, hey, like, I'm going to keep doing this thing, and if I do more of it, one day I'll get ahead.
Yep.
Or I could say, okay, this takes care of today. I have to do this thing so I can eat. Now, how can I better utilize the other hours to get ahead? And so if what you're doing isn't working, ask yourself, what do I need to change? And I used to be a little bit hard-headed. I still am sometimes. And I would do something and it didn't work, so I would do it again. Like if I just do this more times, it will start working. And there's something to be said for surrounding yourself by people of success. Because if somebody else is doing real estate and they say, hey, I had to make 200 calls and you're only on call 50, well, you ain't had enough to test yet, right? So keep dialing. But if by the same means you've been doing the same attempt and calling realtors for the last year and you've dialed 400 realtors trying to buy houses and you haven't bought one, well, maybe you should shift strategies. So it's analyzing, what have I been doing that's working and how can I do more of it? What am I doing that's not working and what can I shift to make it start?
And I think that right there, guys, is the key that Andrew just said. It's just about analyzing. It's about looking at the process that you have been running and then refining that process and saying, okay, I've been doing this for 2 years and it's gotten me here.
Yeah.
And I don't see a way out, right? That right there is not respecting a season. That right there is just not respecting the fact that the thing is not working for the past 2 years.
Not working.
And there's not a way out.
Doing something wrong.
And keep on trying. Keep on trying. And I'll say that in a way of, yes, don't stop building, but take a step back and refine your process. Maybe change your business model. Ask yourself the question: Am I in the right industry?
Yeah.
Am I keeping up with the trends? What's coming up? AI, tech. Do I know anything about AI and tech? Am I studying the right things? Am I respecting the season of planting and learning? Hey, what else can I be doing? If I'm in real estate, if I'm in tech, if I'm in online business, whatever it is there more things that I could be learning? And could I put myself in a season of planting here? Right? Because maybe I have to recultivate those seeds. I have to realize that those seeds that I planted 4 years ago with those dreams and hopes 4 years ago are dead. Right? They're gone. They have not been watered, nurtured, anything. So can I go back, understand? Can I take a shovel? Look, okay, the seeds are gone. So I have to go back in a season of planting,
Yeah.
because I'm not going to water dirt and have some weeds come up and just
Right.
feed those weeds. Some people do that,
Yeah.
right? Some people fall into an industry and fall into a place where it's like, okay, I'm just going to water this and I'm just going to work, and they end up with a life that they hate.
Well, what about took me under, Leo? And I always say this, guys, you should write this down if you're taking notes. Consider the source.
Mm.
It about took me out when I listened to the wrong people. So rather than listening to the wrong people, broke people can't tell you how to get rich. In life, unhappy people probably can't tell you how to live a fulfilling and happy life. So how do I surround myself by the right people and listen intently to somebody who's been there and is doing in that category more like I want to be doing? And I think that's a very, very important note to understand is, who am I listening to? Because you can scroll through Instagram or social media and you can get all sorts of advice, and you could bank your whole life on that advice, and it might be from someone who's nowhere near where you're wanting to be.
Yeah, I asked one of my mentors one day, or actually I didn't ask him. Someone asked me, "Would you switch lives with him?" And I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but I won't say his name. But he was hustling and grinding every single day for 8 hours a week, and he didn't make much. His team hated him. He hated his life. But he was making pretty good money.
Right.
But he was my mentor who taught me how to make money. And somebody asked me, Leo, would you switch lives with him? Would you trade lives with him for even a day? And I said, absolutely not. Right. And I remember at this time he was getting an ulcer. Right. It's like when you're it's just disgusting. Like when whatever happens here pops. And he was going through that with another person who I looked up to. And all of a sudden, 3 months in of learning, I remember I texted you about this. I was getting pain in that same spot that they had pain in.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I started saying, am I about to get an ulcer?
Right.
And
it's crazy.
It's because everything they did, I was like, okay, that's what you do.
Yeah.
You work 8 hours a week, you hustle, grind, treat people like this. And then that's the day before I went and drove home. My car blew up, went to my house, or went to see my mom, cried it all out. I was like, this is terrible. But I changed directions from there.
That's what's so smart, because you put in the effort, you're willing to put in the work, but you're also able to analyze and say, okay, maybe the industry is the right industry, but maybe I'm doing it the wrong way.
Right.
Or who am I listening to? Who am I getting advice from? Because to me, success is not making 6 figures a month and hating your life. That's not success at all.
Guys, me and Andrew, we have mentors, and we have different people in our lives that we do follow. And while we haven't found the perfect person that has all the 8 categories of life figured out, we're always learning. But we're very careful of who we take advice from because of those stories.
Right.
Because when we take advice from someone who's very well in business, but they damn near cheat on their wife 2 years ago, it's like, why would I ever take advice from you? You don't have the same values as we do, right? I'm not going to live the same life as you, right? However, when it comes to the Bible, this is something I'm learning, where I had a very hard time submitting to anyone, right? Which basically means, hey, I trust you. Here's what I need to do. Can you take me there? Mm-hmm. I don't trust anyone. Right, because of my past. And when I found God in a different way of understanding the Bible in a different way, our church has explained it in a very strong way, being a kingdom-led man, taking scripture and saying, okay, analyze that and basically live it. Don't just study it, but live it. That has given me the greatest pathway of listening to the right people. And then I listen to the people who are kingdom-led as well, who also have great business principles. Yeah. So just some advice there of when you're thinking about who to follow, who to be led from, and who to listen to.
It's really good advice. And what do you, when you say somebody may be listening that can relate to not trusting anyone and you said because of your past, like you want to dig in a little bit more for someone listening going, gosh, I struggle with trusting anyone too. Like I've been burnt, or I had a partnership go wrong, or like I did, got millions of dollars stole from me. Like, what is it that you did and are doing to be able to shift that, and what's that look like?
Yeah, so ever since I was little, I never had good leadership in my life, and other than my mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my mom's an all-star. She's incredible. But I never had a strong male leader in my life that taught me the ways around, the ways to
Mm.
make money, the ways to protect, provide, the way to speak, any of those things. And what I had noticed though over the years is there was a lot of negative male influences and a lot of negative influences in general who all had a agenda that was either just self-serving or wanted to
Mm.
lead you in the wrong direction.
That's deep.
And for myself, that started to develop this lack of trust in people in general, right? Because I saw so many people, right? When we would go to events, I would
Yeah.
see so many people who had energy of swindlers, like scammers.
Yeah.
I saw
Because you're
people.
very intuitive, massively intuitive.
I saw people who would cheat on their wives. I saw that so many times in the industry of
Yeah.
like people who just were not like they would just openly say it to a group.
Yeah.
And I was a young 18-year-old sitting there like, oh, is this how they do? Is this just the way to go?
Yeah.
And the advice that they would give is like, bro, the more you do, the more you sleep with people, the better you are at closing. And everyone would nod their heads like, yeah. And it's like, that's what I was fed into,
Yeah.
right? People would feed that information to me.
So interesting.
For years that happened, right? And so I just didn't trust anyone's information because like, hey, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't align with my values.
Yeah.
And year after year, it's like I don't trust anyone because no one has those values of a God-led individual. And that's also why I did not like anything religious, anything talking about the Bible for so long, because I just didn't trust anyone who these people were saying, hey, I'm a Christian also,
Yeah.
but I do all these things. So I'm like, whoa, I don't want to do what you do.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around that. But when you start to just put yourself, and again, back to these seasons, you're in a season of planting, you ask yourself these questions. Or actually in a season of reflection, which we'll talk about in a minute. When you're in that season of reflection, you ask yourself, what do you want? Who do you want to become? Who do you want to follow? Who do you want to be remembered for? When you on your deathbed way later in life after you've done incredible
Couple
things.
100 years from now.
Right. What do you want to look back and be like, hey, that was an awesome life. Look at all these stories I did. Look at all these people that I helped. And my grandchildren are, celebrating the life that I've lived because of X, Y, and Z. So when I went through that season, I started to, that led me towards God, that led me towards the Bible, that led me towards good people like yourself, who then I knew, okay, I've studied well, right? My intuition says, okay, you're a good person, you have these values, and I've watched, right? And because of that, we became really good friends.
Yeah.
And then you and I had these same values. So anyone else that came into our life, we had that filter of like, how do they treat their wife? How do they treat their relationships? How do they treat their daughter? Right?
Yeah.
Let us see. Let's go to dinner. Right? And we would take them out to dinner. We'd pay for dinner, all these good things just to see, do we trust these people? And I think that lack of trust has helped us so much be around the right people and make sure the only people who can speak into our lives are the people that we've said, I trust you.
Yeah.
I respect you. I love you. And I want you in my life.
And I think that is something so deep there, because I come from the opposite, and I trusted in the early stages everyone.
Right.
And that burnt me so many times. And it's like, this really sucks. And so you sharing that and understanding, because listening to no one, right, that can have its challenges. Listening to everyone can have its challenges. But when you learn that filter, like you just described, which really means you trust yourself, you trust your intuition, and you say, hey, I met someone who I know, love, and trust. This is one of my people.
Right.
This is like what I tell for you guys, what I say for you guys is you're going to find a handful of soulmates in your life. Stick close to them. Those are your handful of very close-knit people who you're going to do life with, build business with, hang out, become chosen family with.
The ones who actually want to see you win. And guys, this is a topic that is so important. I know we're talking about seasons, but this is such an important piece.
Yeah.
That find friends that when you say, hey, I just did a deal, their eyebrows don't flare and be like, oh, I want to get a deal and you got a deal. Like, those are the people you're going to want to get as far away from, because they subconsciously will take you down because their insecurity is so strong to the point where they can't handle when somebody else wins. And that is dangerous because that's a lot of people in a lot of people's lives. We had that in our lives. We
Yeah.
studied it. I was burned so many times with relationships over the past 6 years that I studied my ass off human nature.
Hmm.
I studied the way people think. I studied subconscious mind. I studied animal kingdom. I studied all those things and how they relate and understood this concept. And now we see it every day. We don't talk about our wins very often with our friends.
Yeah.
Or not with our friends, but like with
with
people
people.
we might not know yet.
I heard somebody say everybody wants you to do well, just not quite
Just
as good
not
as
better than them.
them.
And it's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
So when you're picking and choosing friends and tribe and people that you want around you, do a little bit of tests for your own sake because you trust yourself. And then you need to know, you need to gather data. When you go to a dinner table, hey, who's paying? Who's putting the card down? Right? And it's not about that. If they want to split the check, it's okay. You get to understand their values a little bit.
Yeah.
But me and Andrew, we understand we're always going to cover, right? But when we cover, how's the person reacting? Right? Are they saying thank you? We've had people before so many times before, and it's fine, right? But we'll cover and they say absolutely nothing. And it's the expectation.
That's usually the last dinner.
That's the last dinner we ever have with them. It's not about the $100, $200 of the dinner. It's about the values that are set within that person.
Well, and it show the little things. How you do anything is how you do everything, and the little things are going to reflect how the big things will be handled. And if I'd have been intuitive enough to see that when I started, it would save me getting burned so many times.
Right.
And I think I was listening to Patrick Bet-David interview Tony Robbins yesterday.
I love that guy.
And he said something that I think is very powerful, and it exemplifies what we're sharing here, the importance of this. And that is when he goes to hire somebody, of course, his companies do I think it's like $8 billion a year now. And when he goes to partner with somebody or hire a high-level person in his company, he said, I hire private investigators to investigate. They cost me 5 or sometimes 6 figures because I will only do business with somebody I know. He said, and I invite them to do the same on me. He said, then when things come up, we talk through it. But going in, he said, it saves me millions or hundreds of millions of dollars of losses. And I thought, my gosh, I would have thought hearing that 4 years ago, at the time, my perspective on myself was such, I would have thought oh, I'm not near that level. Except whenever I went into business with the wrong people, it cost me many millions of dollars. And so as you look at yourself and you say, hey, I am worthy of great things. I am worthy of great friends. And if you keep attracting the wrong kind, look in the mirror and say, how do I become more of the person that I believe my values to be? Because if I'm attracting someone else, then what am I putting out that is causing that to happen?
Were those the 4 people that were stalking me for 4 years? The private investigators that you hired for me?
That's exactly what was happening.
Got it. What a guy. Me too. Me too. But the big point for you guys, as you guys are taking this in and utilizing it, is assess, right? We talk about assessing and refining. And when you're trapped in a cycle, when you're trapped in a wheel, when you're trapped in this entrepreneur wheel, it's because you haven't done the refinement of saying, hey, are the people around me the ones that are winning? If I needed to go to my tribe and say, I need this in order to get here, are they the ones that say, absolutely, I'm here for you. I got you. And then you'll get to that next level inevitably, because we always need people. Or is your tribe the ones that'll say, what's in it for me? If I give you this, though, what are you going to give me? Right? And I remember being in a tribe like that, and it was so draining. And it's so lonely because you're then back into a transactional state where everyone around you is just there to take from you and only give if they can receive 2x, because they have this quote unquote investor mentality that if they give you something, it better come back with 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. And it doesn't make sense that way, right? A relationship like this, a brotherhood like this, it's give, take, give, and it's just, we're not keeping track.
I think I heard somebody once say, friends don't keep score. And I think when you pour into the wrong people, then that bites you, right? But when you find your tribe and you can just literally give without the hope of return, because it just works. And how would you say you found that balance? How do you intuitively find that?
Let me say this. It was an absolute season of isolation. And it was an absolute season of removing everyone from my life so I can hear my own thoughts again.
Wow.
And if I wanted to think about, is this person good for me? I didn't have 14 people speaking into my life. I was the only one speaking into my life saying, no, this is how I feel. This is how I want to be treated. This is the way that I want my life to roll, because I was alone.
Yeah.
And that actually happened during COVID, which is, a good thing,
Interesting
because
time.
it was a double isolation. One, it was forced isolation. And two, I decided to remove myself from a lot of circles. But that isolation taught me how to be alone. It taught me to build such a strong relationship with myself so I can always have myself and I never feel lonely anymore. So that if I meet the wrong person, I don't tell myself that I need the person just because I don't want to be alone.
Right.
So that was something I made a mistake of earlier years, because I was a lonely individual. Even if a person didn't treat me right, I would still kind of keep them around because I didn't want to be lonely.
Mm.
But then after those years of isolation, I built such a strong relationship with myself where it no longer mattered whether someone liked me or not. It was like, hey, that's if you don't like me, if we're not in a good fit, that's okay, right? There's a lot of amazing people that will, and there's a lot of amazing people that will like you, but I still respect you as an individual. But then you do that for so long, and then you have a great tribe because your filter becomes so strong
Mm.
of the person that you want, but that only comes from a season of isolation.
That's deep. And I think that the sooner we can grasp that and begin implementing that, the faster our business will grow, the more pure our circle will become, the better we'll attract the right people, because everything changes when we change. But you want to jump into the growing phase. So we've been in planting phase, and I know we are next going to cover the growing phase, talking about building momentum and getting your garden to grow. So what do we want to talk about in growing phase?
Yeah, so growing is the growing phase is also known as the momentum phase. So type it in the chat, growing season. Okay. Now once your seeds are planted, you've got the vision, right? Here are the friends that I want. Here's the business that I want. Here's the house that I want to build. Here's the blueprints, right? And you've learned how to do it. You've developed yourself. You developed your EQ. You developed your relationship building skills. You developed your sales skills. All those things you've planted. Now it's time to grow. And this typically happens, guys, when those seeds are planted, and happens in Q2, Q3. And it's typically when momentum starts building for the efforts that you've put in the season prior. This might look like more sales, more engagement with your audience. What typically happens is more workload comes in, right? You start getting more hours. You start getting this imbalance of time that shows up in your life where, hey, I'm putting in 40, 50, 60 hours now. In my planting phase, I was maybe only putting 30, 40.
Mm.
So, but this is where, if you don't swindle away, if you don't break, this is where things start to take off. It's an absolute intense period that requires you to be an execution-oriented individual and requires you to refine things. Because you're going to be in work, you still have to sit back and refine. Okay, I'm working, my engines are rolling, but I realize that all this time that I'm putting into sales is not generating what I need to. How do I make that shift and refine so that I can keep the engine rolling and bring in more sales?
So this is the place where I got stuck for so many years, because you plant and then you work in your building and you're starting to make some money. You're starting to do some deals. The things start to grow up a little bit, but then you've got the weeds. You got to remove the weeds. And I always remember that was my least favorite part of it all, because we didn't have a lot of money growing up. We would go out. I don't know how my mom did it, God bless her, but she would go out into the garden for sometimes 4 to 8 hours a day and pull the weeds by hand, so that we had the strawberries, so that we had the green beans. So
Bless your mom's heart, man.
And then when I got a little older, got up in my teens, and we was able to get one of those little mantis tillers. I don't know if you guys ever seen them. There was big advertising, at least back in the country where I lived. And there's a little tiller. It was about so wide, probably like 10 inches, 12 inches wide. And we'd go down the rows between the gardens, and we'd till the weeds up. And then we only had to weed just a little dab. It's the 4-cycle on the left. Actually, it was a 2-cycle. And so it looked just like that. So that one right in the middle.
This one?
Yeah, that was it.
Interesting.
That's a little mantis tiller, and I tilled with that thing so many hours. And I would get down into the weeds. We'd then though have to weed out right next, because if you got too close, you'd root up what you had planted.
Right.
So if we got too close in the weeds, we'd end up tearing up the strawberries or tearing up the green bean plants. And so it was a tedious progress, just like it is in business.
Of course.
Because as you're building that momentum, and now you're going, well, gosh, I got the check. Good. But wait a second, I need to get a team. But hang on, I need more deals so I can get a team. But I need more teams so I can do more deals. And so every one of these things becomes an opportunity for stagnation. And that's why most people get stuck in the wheel of stress and the entrepreneurial ship wheel. They think they had a job. Now they just left to go to a job where they're their own boss, but it just costs them more hours.
So let's break this down, because what happens there is, okay, you need so many things. You need new hires, you need more deals, you need more revenue, you need X, Y, Z, more systems, right?
Yeah.
Each of those require multiple decisions at once.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the individual has not grown their personal development to have the right emotional regulation and the right decision-making skills, they get trapped on one of those decisions and they stop. Business stops.
Yeah.
It's dried out.
Or worse yet, you make the decision, hire the wrong people, don't know how to manage, and then you're just upset and stressed all the time because you just took your problem of you and expanded it times 4.
Absolutely. And as entrepreneurs, what we do is we make decisions.
Yeah.
Right? We make a decision that moves us to a direction that allows us to do more work, that allows us to go to another decision, make that decision, and do more work. It's a terrible thing sometimes, guys. Entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It is.
By the way, we're hiring right now, so if you want a W-2 job, click apply.
It is not for the faint of heart, guys, because it is exactly that. Your job is to make decisions and allow your emotions to be steady enough so you can make the decision so that you can get to do more work.
It takes a special kind of like almost crazy though for us to be entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
That's
We're
why we
absolute weirdos.
attract our people.
But here's the thing. That is why we say your personal development has to grow in order for your business to grow, because you have to be the person that attracts a team, and that team, you have to help them make better decision-making skills. They have to look at you as the entrepreneur as inspiration for how you make decisions.
Right.
You have to trust them to make a decision. So now as your business grows, you have different directions you can go, but your team here is making those decisions, and then they're getting to work. Now you have a built out system. And now what's happening when you make a decision, you work, that work could be automated.
Yeah.
If it can be. Most things can be, right? What is the work? Sending emails out, sending this to this to this, that could be automated, right? Or a funnel, that could be automated. Most things could be automated, but if you can't make a decision to move forward, then you're trapped. And you're back in the same place.
So somebody's listening to this and somebody's going, that's exactly where I am. I get this, right? Except you've just spit out a lot of facts. I feel stuck, because that's how I felt for years. But like, what the heck is it that I need to do to go from this, what should be my momentum phase, but it's just being stuck in this loop-de? Like what's the one thing that you do as a personal growth, as personal development, that takes you from being stuck, struggling, to finally starting to have that consistent growth?
So the biggest thing is being able to look at the next step as it's clear. Let me take this back. Taking that next step, and that next step is clear that it's going to move you to your mission, to your vision, right? But if you don't know that, let's just call it the outcome. If you don't know your outcome, you don't know what that next step is, and you don't know how that's going to lead you there. So you have to remove all the fluff for a minute. You have to remove the emotions of, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? You got to remove that. And you have to look, what is my outcome? And if you're in a financial pickle right now, you might just say, my outcome is to get myself out of this financial pickle.
Right.
Get myself out of debt. Start making $100,000. Start get my first $1 million. Whatever that is your outcome. So then you have to remove all the other fluff of these 19 ideas, business ideas that you have that you don't know anything about. But you do know this one thing, right? Maybe it's real estate, or maybe it is building an online business selling this, or maybe it's building this product, because it's your core of competency. And because it's in your core of competency, you don't have to go through another phase of planting because you already know what to do.
Oh, this is good.
When it's in your core of competency, you can say, okay, if I want to hit my 100 grand, or if I want to get out of debt and hit my 100 grand, my core competency is going to be selling real estate because I've already taken a course on it. I've already learned, I've already done programs, I already spent a lot of money on that. It's my core competency. Now you remove all the other 17 business ideas so your brain doesn't start firing off because you want to save that firing off energy for you to say, I'm going to make my calls.
Yeah.
But even before that, okay, I'm gonna build a real estate company, or I'm gonna buy more houses, and I wanna make 100 grand. How do I get there? You have to break down that outcome of 100 grand and reverse engineer it back to the first step. Something I would like to do as a kid, I had these lead pencils in school. I would never pay attention in school, right? But we expect you to pay 100% attention on these lives. But I never paid attention to my teachers. They were never engaging, right? Never engaging, except for this one beautiful teacher I had. She was awesome. 5th grade, Miss Renee. She was such a beauty.
Shout
And
out to Miss Renee.
whatever she said, I paid attention to. Anyways, I would draw little things, and I had these little lead pencils, right? And I would draw. And then I would get bored of drawing, and instead of listening to the teacher, I would pick apart the pencil all the way, and I'd throw it, boom, boom, boom. And all of a sudden, I'd have a core of the pencil, I'd have the lead, I'd have the little eraser, and I'd have the spring, and I'd have the top as well. And then what I would do, I would take that and I would rebuild it all together. Sometimes it would turn out not working, so I'd fix it again. And then I would eventually get back to the lead pencil, and then the bell would ring. So I would take that pencil to the next class and do the same thing again. That's how I got through school. But what I'm saying is you have to do that with your goals and your outcomes. You have to take that mechanical lead pencil, I know this is a pen, and you have to break it apart, and you have to look at what the parts is to know what your next step is. Okay, I need that core piece of the pencil, which maybe is your sales calls, is your lead generation machine, right? And then what are all the pieces to it? You also need a team, and you also need negotiation skills. What are those pieces? And you put it back together.
That's good. So I think if we start by understanding the planting, and we are stepping into the growing phase, removing the weeds, which is, again, shiny object syndrome is a real thing among us entrepreneurs.
Yes, it is.
And we have to focus. We have to dial in our focus. And I commend so many in our group. They find a core competency, as Leo said, and they focus on it. Whether it be saying, hey, I'm really good at follow-up. Let me help you with your follow-up. And then they hop on the teams of people who have deals, and now they add more value, and everybody wins. Or somebody says, hey, I'm really good at finding lease buyers, and they hop on the team of someone who has deals and help everybody win. And so as you're removing the weeds and you're finding that core focus, now it comes to harvesting, getting the freaking money, start to get paid. And as you are consistently starting to reap, this is where it gets good and exciting. But this is one of the most dangerous parts. Because in these other phases, we expect it to be hard. We're planting, we're building, it's sometimes overwhelming, we're growing, we're finding our focus. We expect all of that to be difficult. The harvesting is where it gets dangerous, because in these moments, we can either continue the momentum, continue the profit, continue scaling, find a model of what I call profit first, being able to pay yourself first, give back in the way you wanted to when you started the business, or this is where it can all go sideways, and mismanagement can cause it all to come back to zero. So you want to talk a little bit about harvesting and how to manage the harvest?
Yeah. So whether it's revenue, whether it's impact, whether it's expansion, this is a place where you have to harvest correctly. And I know there's a couple farm analogies here. I never planted a single thing in my life. However, when it comes to business, we had moments like this where we planted and we grew for a very long time. Yeah. And then we didn't know how to harvest it. We didn't know how to collect. We didn't know how to close the deal fully. And I say that for myself. You knew how to do it in real estate, but in other businesses, I had no idea how to do that. Right. So I had to go through a season of harvesting multiple times, fail, have to go back to planting, boom, 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 and back to harvesting. But now I was smart enough to learn back in my season of planting to say, okay, next time when I harvest, I'm going to have the right tools.
Yeah.
I'm going to have the right payment processors. I'm going to have the right systems. I'm going to have the right agreements. I'm going to have the right things that make sure that when I do harvest that money, I'm good. Taxes are going to be taken care of,
Yeah.
right? If ever XYZ person comes back and says, hey, this didn't happen, I have the tools for that. I have the resources for that. I did not have that in the past. So this is what Andrew is saying, where it could be a tricky situation, because you might be in a harvest season, you might collect 100 grand, but you might not be ready for that. You might not have put in the time in the planting season to prepare for an infrastructure to handle 100K or to handle 100 students or to handle 100 clients. And this is where you have to sit back and say, who knows how to do this? Who knows how to build an infrastructure? Who has handled 100 students?
Yeah.
Who has handled 1,000 clients? Who has handled an event with 1,000 people? So you can study that and be ready for it.
So I'll give you an example of a very big mistake in harvesting, because two things can happen. I see some people they harvest, and now they go allow things to happen in their business that they would never do otherwise, and it gets out of control. For me, it was I went and put a bunch of money into marketing, and I was over $40,000 in years ago with other people at other times, and I put over $40,000 into marketing, and I wondered why we wasn't closing deals. Because for me, I knew on average every $2,000 I put in, I closed a deal. So I was like, maybe they're not quite as good at closing, but why 0 deals with 40 grand? I go through the leads, I find out that none of the leads have been called yet. $40,000 freaking dollars. Well, when I was broke and hustling, I would have never let that happen. I would have, if I had 1,000 go out, I was on the phones figuring out how to turn it to profit. So I mismanaged that in the harvest. And then I see people err on the other side, which is, I got my 100. I'm going to keep all 100 of it. This is the first time I've ever had money like this. And now they refuse to release and plant any of it. And now their business goes from going up because they was grinding and hustling to now they have something, and they're so concerned about protecting what they have that they can't get what they want. So it is that balance of saying, okay, how do I make sure I build? How do I make sure I'm okay planting the 100,000 back out, putting it back out into the universe, hiring, building, buying leads, because that's what got me here. That's what's going to get me there at a bigger level, but also making sure that's managed properly. How do I hire higher level coaches? How do I get in bigger masterminds? How do I become a better person who can now, the same person that got me the 100K has to evolve to get me the million, has to evolve to get me the 10 million. So how do I continue that evolvement and that growth?
So it's continually going back to the message of your personal growth is required for your business to grow, because you yourself, you have to be a good steward of money. If 100 grand comes in, you have to be a good steward of that. You have to know where to put that. Where am I putting that in terms of taxes? How am I going to allocate that towards the hiring, towards payroll? How am I going to buy new systems? How do I lower my expenses to make sure I don't drown? Right? All these things are new problems, but they're the most exciting problems because you're in a new level of entrepreneurship where you're going to have to learn these things.
Yeah.
Like this whole world of entrepreneurship is just a giant university. We're building businesses, we're trying classes, we're trying different things that we enjoy, we're trying to serve people, right? And we go through mistakes and we learn from it. And then we continue that process. It's a school of hard knocks.
Right.
And, you know, I decided to do this instead of going to college, but it was one of the greatest experiences for me because I grew so fast, because I put myself in a scenario where I had to learn, I had to perform. And if I didn't respect these seasons, I would have drowned 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I respected the season of planting, and I respected the season of growing, and of course of harvesting when we did start to make money. I had Andrew with me. This is why I was able to do these things, by the way. It wasn't because I'm this genius little Asian kid. It's because I had Andrew that taught me these things, and I just listened. I said, bro, I got you. I see the things that you do.
He's a genius too, though.
I see the things that you do, and I respect them. Let me just copy them. Right? Are you okay with me copying them? Are you okay with me doing the same thing? Are you okay with me not making the same mistakes that you made over the past 10 years? And Andrew said, absolutely. And that's one of the most important reasons for mentorship here, guys, is when you have a person that you trust, and that I would have traded. I would have traded a couple days with him, right? Yeah. to live that type of experience in life. And I trusted him. And that's why I said, okay, I trust you as an individual. Do Do you want me to win? Do you want to see
Would
me
you trade with me
succeed?
before I lost the 45 or
Maybe
after?
not. Maybe a little bit after.
After. Okay.
After you've done the hard work of
All
getting the pounds off. But guys,
right, I got you.
this is the season of harvesting. You got to be prepared for it. But that's a beautiful thing, is that every single day you're just learning. You're just taking that first next step and understanding that everything that you do leads to another thing that leads you to another thing. And that's why it is good to build up your mentality to say, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure whatever that thing is out. And I'm not going to stop until I figure that out, because this is what's going to, get my family to go to Turks and Caicos whenever we want. This is what's going to get my family to never have to worry about money. This is what's going to get me in a place where I feel so good about myself. I'm a great father. I'm a great whoever you are, but you're a great that. This is the thing. This is the pathway, guys. No longer is there many hard things to do in life, right? We have food. We can walk down the street. We have food. We used to need to hunt for that, right? Anything you want, Bezos is here to send it to you. We get gifts from Bezos every single day.
Every day.
And life is not that hard anymore. But people say it's hard because, of course, financial trouble makes it hard, and they treat the financial trouble the same stress factors as when people back then looked at a saber-toothed tiger.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we live in such a stressed world right now.
Yeah.
But the world is not that difficult anymore, so we have to put ourselves through difficult tasks in order to be great people, in order to be great leaders. But the competition is so low because people are so lazy and they don't want to do it. And it's hard to make a decision. So they don't, and they let that decision hold for years. But I'm telling you guys, there is such little quote unquote competition out there for you to be great and for you to be an incredible entrepreneur and for you to take your family to Turks and Caicos, to Hawaii, to all these beautiful places whenever you desire, with whoever you desire. You just have to take and put in the work that we're talking about here.
So these three things is what consume almost every entrepreneur, and where they get caught up in the entrepreneurial wheel, and many never get out of it because they are too focused on holding on to what they have rather than stepping into who they want to be.
That's right.
And the few who break out are learning to rest, to reflect, to reset, and to utilize their successes. Your downtime will always determine your uptime. And you got to use your successes to be able to take a moment and think and build and redesign your path forward, because it's always changing in an ever evolving world. So what does it mean to truly rest as an entrepreneur?
So resting is the last season. It's like the winter time. You can call it the winter time. The winter time we sometimes think is the point of time where it's a little. My friend sent me something that I can't repeat. I'll repeat on the next one once I study it a little bit more. But it's like this bubble of disappointment, this bubble of like, hey, nothing's moving. Sometimes that's the winter. But I like to see resting as something you do every day, of course. However, I also see it as a period of, after you harvest, you rest, you celebrate your wins, you say, okay, it was a big push that we just made. I spent a lot of energy. I invested a lot of energy there in my harvesting season. Let me just take a step back to recharge. Let me take a step back to analyze my results and plan the next planting phase. Because, wow, that was a crazy season. We made X amount of money. I made these mistakes. Me and Andrew, we make mistakes every single day.
Every day.
And we love it. Like, we love when we fall and face plant and then pick each other up and be like, yo, that fucking hurt. Let me not do that next time, because I don't want to go through it. But now I know. Now I can run faster because I know not to make that little step. And hey, there's a rock right there. Yeah. That's a rock. Let's not hop on that anymore. And we talk like that to each other sometimes, because like, yo, we could have seen that a mile away, but we were too arrogant. I was too arrogant to see that giant ass rock there. And this is like what happens in these seasons. But back to the resting season, saying, okay, hey, remember those rocks that we didn't see? Next time, let's just see them and hop over them. But we have to jump a little bit higher for them. All right, cool? Awesome. Okay, what else do we make mistakes on? We made mistakes on X, Y, and Z. Bro, but it was a crazy ride. What a great time we had.
Yeah.
Let's go to Turks and Caicos.
That's right.
and have a great time for 3 days and then get right back to work.
Back to work.
But that's the resting season. It's not necessarily going to Turks and Caicos and having a good time and enjoying time with friends, but it's just taking a step back to recharge yourself and strategically planning the next planting season, which then leads you to the growing season, which then leads you into the harvesting season. So then you can look forward to another resting season. But then you just keep doing that and you keep making more money and you keep making experiences. So one day you're able to tell your kids, wow, this was my crazy life, right? And these are all the mistakes I made. So just because you got rejected by that girl doesn't mean that, hey, this is what I went through. I made a huge mistake where I lost $1 million. So losing that girl, it's not that bad. I wish I had someone to tell me that, right? But I thought getting rejected in 3rd grade was the worst thing in my life. It was the worst thing in my life. I cried for like 2 days. But if
whole world fell apart.
Whole world fell apart. But it's the fact of being able to tell your kids one day, it's okay. It's okay, son. It's okay. Look at how much of a G your father was. And you have my blood, son. Right? This is how I'm going to talk. I'm going to have my kids watch. This is why we do this. So our kids can watch this one day and see how much of an awesome, great man that Andrew was. So my kids look at Andrew like, yo, Uncle Andrew, you were so fire and so cool, amazing. And look at me and be like, wow, such a cool dude. But that's resting. And these are the 4 seasons of entrepreneurship that we always go through. But we know that's every step of the way. You just got to keep going and keep growing as an individual. And it's going to show you some incredible things.
That's powerful. I think for all of you hearing this today, if you can really take away one thing and realize that we all have felt stuck at times. We all have to analyze where we are and what season we're in and how to better manage that season. And then manage and step into our seasons of rest when and where appropriate. And as you do that, I'm telling you, this thing becomes a game that is a fun adventure every day, and every problem becomes a thing that we just get to work together to overcome rather than this life-altering, stressful, oh my gosh, I can't believe this thing is happening. I just had a conversation with one of our incredible mastermind members, helping them solve a challenge on Friday or Thursday.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I said, listen, I'm very glad you experienced this at this level, because the same decisions you have to make at the several $100,000 level are the same decisions and stress you're going to face at the several $1 million level and up on beyond that. And the way that we do it now is just getting the reps in so that the seasons that continue to grow gives you the ability to step into that power. And I'll tell you sometimes the greatest disappointment, and I want to wrap up with this. I remember we had read years ago, I don't even think we had the internet yet. Maybe we did. But we had read that if you bury potatoes in a refrigerator, they'll keep for months. And so we went and got 2 old refrigerators from the neighbors that didn't work anymore. We dug holes in the ground and we put potatoes in them. We filled them both up and we covered them over with dirt. And comes winter and the ground was not had been frozen. It's starting to thaw out a little bit. The snow and ice is gone, and we was getting low on potatoes. So we said, we got to get the shovels. We got to go get the refrigerators dug up. We started digging up the refrigerators. We opened the first one, and it's about 3 inches of black mush. Mm-hmm. All the potatoes had rotted and was gone. Well, that's disappointing. And we discussed just leaving the other refrigerator. We said, no, we got to dig it up. We got to see what's in there. We dug up the second one, and it's full of perfect, beautiful potatoes. The difference was, we found out later, that there are certain signs of the moon that you have to bury in that they keep versus not. If you all ever read the Farmer's Almanac, certain times you can bury your potatoes and certain times you shouldn't. Had no idea. We buried them under the 2 different moon signs. We had no idea, so I'm assuming that's the only difference it could have been. They was 6 feet apart, both in refrigerators, both buried in the ground. So we assumed that was the problem. But the one was a great disappointment, and the other was a great, beautiful surprise. And we was able to eat and then, of course, use those to plant more for the year ahead. And I say that because not everything goes as planned. And if all your hopes and dreams are stuck into your rest period, and that is your whole objective, then life becomes somewhat miserable when you open it up and are disappointed because nothing ever goes as planned. But if you can truly own every season, enjoy it, find pleasure and opportunity in them all, I'm telling you, this business and this life is an adventure every day, and we're blessed.
Absolutely. God is good.
All the time.
All the time.
God's good.
All right, beautiful people. Well, that is our show today. Love you guys. This is going to be such an incredible week we have going on. Really, really good topics we have. We're just going to continue pouring in. This is an important one to keep coming back to, right? This is such an important topic. You're not going to want to not have ingrained in your brain, right? Personal development, as it grows, your business also grows. Respect the seasons in your life, and you'll be good to go.
We'll see you tomorrow. Same place, same time on a beautiful Tuesday.
Absolutely.
Bye for now.
Deuces. Bye-bye.